All right. Very good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to our UNSUN TCM Clinic webinar on puberty. So today we have a very special guest, our physician, physician Kwek Yen. She's a physician with UNSUN TCM Clinic. So before we begin, just like to remind everyone that you can type in your questions in the chat box below. And then later on, during the Q&A session, we can have them answered by our physician. And without further ado, let us welcome Physician Kwek Yen. Physician Yen.
Okay. Hi. Hello.
Hello. Hi,
Good evening,
Physician
everyone.
Yen. Hi. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll pass it on to you, and you can start the session. Yeah.
Okay. I will move on to the PowerPoint first.
All right.
Okay. So welcome to our webinar session. Our topic for today, as you all know, would be dealing with puberty the TCM way. So I am the speaker for today. I am Ian. I'm currently practicing at the Tiong Bahru and Novena clinics, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to share more about TCM with you. So without further ado, let me highlight the main points that I'll be sharing today. Okay, so yeah, the outline for the talk today. So I will be sharing how Western medicine and TCM understand puberty. And for that, I will cover some basic TCM concepts, like what we often refer to as the 5 organs and also syndrome. And after that, I will be talking about some common issues faced by teenagers going through puberty, namely these 3: menstrual cramps, acne, and tips for growing tall, which I think people might be interested in. For each condition, I will be sharing with you some tea or herbal recipes, and even acupressure massage that I hope I can help to alleviate these conditions that your children might meet with. So let's begin with the definition and characteristics of puberty. What happens during puberty? I'm sure all of you here know what puberty is all about, having been through it. Puberty is the process when a child undergoes physical changes to become sexually mature. So it affects girls and boys differently, and it usually happens between ages 8 to 13 for girls and 9 to 15 for boys. So these physical changes include the development of secondary sexual characteristics, such as growth of pubic and underarm hair, breast development in girls, and growth of the genitals in boys. These are usually the first signs of puberty. So they will then be followed by a growth spurt 1 to 2 years later. After that would be the arrival of menarche, the girl's first period, and ejaculations for boys, or wet dreams. So these changes that occur to them as they move towards adulthood are often accompanied by emotional responses as well, ranging from irritability to sadness. And these changes can be in part due to hormones and in part due to your child learning to cope with the sudden changes that are occurring to them. They might become self-conscious about their physical appearances and face confidence issues for the first time in their life. And having their peers develop at a different pace can also be a source of distress. So it is important to talk to your children about what they are going to face sooner rather than later. Recognize that it is a transition phase for them and let them know that it is normal to feel unsure. And it is also good to take this opportunity to teach them about personal hygiene. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about early puberty. So over the past century, you might have noticed also the age of puberty has been declining. Like in the mid-60s, 70s, people are getting puberty at the secondary school age. But then now it's moving towards the late primary school age. So, and in the recent years, doctors are actually seeing more cases of early puberty. So what is early puberty? It is puberty that begins before 8 in girls and 9 in boys. Parents should watch out for signs of puberty and bring your child to a doctor if you notice them under this age of 8 or 9. So for girls, the first sign is usually the development of breast buds or growth of pubic hair. For boys, it's usually the enlargement of genitals and also pubic hair. or if they start to have body odor or experience a rapid height gain before they enter primary school. It is important to let the doctor assess and differentiate between central and peripheral precocious puberty, or rather to exclude these peripheral causes. So peripheral causes can include genetic conditions or tumors secreting sex hormones. And for central precocious puberty, or also known as normal precocious puberty, there's no identifiable cause. So this is the normal one that happens with no cause. So it is important to have your child, although there's no identifiable cause, there are actually risk factors. So being overweight or excessive meat intake can increase the risk of it. So it's important to have your child lead a healthy lifestyle with balanced diet and exercise. And early puberty can cause physical and emotional problems. They can grow up as shorter adults as their bones will fuse earlier and they stop growing earlier. And more significantly, it can result in stress and behavioral problems. So children at younger ages might not understand the emotions and physical changes they are going through. And so they don't know how to handle and react to them. And it's important to bring the attention, if you notice these early puberty signs, it's important to bring the attention to the doctor before it's too late. So for girls, when they start having their period, then it's a bit too late for the doctors to be able to do anything to delay puberty anymore. So in the Western perspective, when a child reaches the puberty age, it kicks off a sequence of events. A part of the brain called the hypothalamus starts to release this hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone. And this GnRH then stimulates the pituitary gland just under the brain to release two more puberty hormones, LH and FSH. And these hormones travel through the bloodstream to the testes or ovaries. So for boys, the testes begin to produce sperm and testosterone. And for girls, the ovaries begin to release eggs and produce estrogen. So from the TCM's understanding, the growth and maturation and eventual decline of a person's sexual abilities are controlled by a substance called tian kui. So this is a passage from ancient texts, and here it states, when a girl reaches 14, 7, and a boy 16, 8, tian kui is produced in the body. It can be thought of something like sex hormones. So this tian kui is nourished by both kidney essence, which is mostly present before birth, and spleen qi, which is accumulated by what we eat. So using today's terms, it can be understood that the amount of tian kui or the time of arrival of tian kui is determined by genes from your parents and also your nutrition level. So tian kui results in different outcomes for males and females. For girls, tian kui directs qi and blood to fill the chong and ren meridians, and this results in menstruation. For boys, tian kui controls the release of essence and qi, resulting in ejaculations, and both lead to the abilities to conceive. Okay. So here are the 5 organs in TCM: 心肝脾肺肾, heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. The concept and function of these organs are very different from what we have learned in science. So in TCM, each organ can be understood as something like the entire organ system. So rather than the organ that we are familiar with, like how the function of the spleen is actually the function of the entire digestive system, and the function of the heart being the function of the entire circulatory system, and so on. So the organs more closely related to puberty are the liver, spleen, and kidneys. So as I have mentioned, the spleen's function is the function of the digestive system. It turns the food that we consume into qi and blood, 2 very important substances that make up our body. So the kidney stores essence in the body, or jing, which is made up of the prenatal and postnatal components. Prenatal essence is what our parents give us, like genes, and postnatal portion comes from the food that we eat. Yeah, and the spleen helps to replenish that. So the essence controls growth and development, and it eventually leads to the formation of tian kui, that is needed for puberty and sexual maturation. So children with developmental disorders are said to have poor kidney function. And the liver stores blood produced by the spleen, and it also regulates the flow of qi and blood. So every month, it moves the blood from from the liver into Chong and Ren meridians, resulting in menstruation. And when the liver is impaired, there can be menstrual disorders like cramps, irregular periods, heavy bleeding. So now we move on to syndrome. This is a thing very unique to TCM. We treat by mainly diagnosing the syndrome instead of disease. So a syndrome is a classification of a certain pattern of symptoms, and a disease can have many syndromes. So like for example, when we talk about headache, so these are the syndromes that we often see. The characteristic of pain and its accompanying symptoms can determine these different syndromes like wind cold, liver fire, phlegm dampness, and so on. And treatments for each of these syndromes is different. So this is unlike Western medicine where the same medication could possibly be given for these headaches. But for TCM, medication is given according to these syndromes. And the same medication can be given for different diseases, but of the same syndrome. So let's say this person comes in with headache, and I diagnose him with liver fire. And this other person comes in with insomnia, and I also diagnose him with liver fire. So for both of these individuals with seemingly different issues, I can give them the same cure to reduce liver fire. And this can in turn solve both their headache and insomnia. So what we look at is usually syndrome and not really the disease. Okay, let's now move on to the main part of our webinar, the common issues faced by children during puberty. So menstrual cramps, acne, and tips for growing tall. So the most significant change for girls during puberty would be periods. For the first 2 years after menstruation begins, it is common to see your child skip her periods or have irregular periods. So the body actually needs a little time to establish a normal cycle. And also falling sick, extreme weight loss or gain, and high levels of physical activity or stress can also influence the menstrual cycle. So all this is perfectly normal. So if within the 2 years, the menses is a bit irregular, don't need to worry too much about it. By the 3rd year, the body should settle down into a regular cycle. If your child misses her period for an entire year, or if her menstrual cycle is still irregular after 2 years, then you should talk to your doctor about it. So what is a normal menstrual cycle? The length of the cycle is usually between 21 to 35 days, and the length of the period is usually 3 to 7 days. We always, when we learn in textbooks, we always learn it as 28-day cycle, but actually this is just an average. The more important thing is to establish a regular cycle. So if you have 22 days, it doesn't mean that it's not normal, but you should regularly be 22 days. Or like plus minus 5 days, it's usually still considered within normal. So let your child know that it is important to keep track of her menstrual cycles. There are many period tracking apps out there nowadays. And some apps allow you to record like menstrual flow and accompanying symptoms. So you can let your child choose her own app to use. Try and involve them, as some might not be comfortable or shy discussing their periods. So let them manage their own health. Okay, many teens and also adult women experience menstrual cramps. So for some, the discomfort is merely annoying, but for others, it can be severe enough to interfere with everyday activities, not being able to attend school or PE lessons. It's usually felt as a throbbing or aching pain in the lower abdomen. The pain can range from dull to severe and even extend to the hips and lower back. And it can sometimes be accompanied by nausea, bloating, and diarrhea or constipation. So in TCM, the diagnosis can be broken up into 2 broad categories, excess and deficiency syndromes. So we say that when qi and blood are stagnated, qi and blood flow to the uterus is obstructed as well, and this results in pain. It's a common phrase that we often use, 通则不痛，痛则不通, which basically means that when there is flow, there shouldn't be any pain. And when there is pain, it means that there is some form of obstruction somewhere. Accumulation of cold in the body can also slow down the circulation of qi and blood and result in stagnation. Where does the cold come from, you might ask? So from the excessive intake of cold food and drinks, like ice cold bubble tea or soft drinks, which I believe many teenagers or Singaporeans in general are guilty of. And also entering air-conditioned places right after perspiring profusely. So when you enter, when you're perspiring profusely, the pores are open, and we say that cold can enter very easily into your body. So these two syndromes are actually the most common syndromes that we see in youngsters in Singapore. We also have deficiency syndromes, where there is a lack of qi, blood, or kidney essence to nourish the uterus. So how to differentiate between these two set of syndromes? Those with excess syndromes are likely to experience menstrual cramps before their period starts, and other premenstrual symptoms that they might experience can include headache, breast tenderness, and being very moody or irritable. They often have cold hands and feet or feel cold easily. Those with deficiency syndromes are likely to get their cramps during or after their period. So their periods are usually lighter, perhaps lasting 2 to 3 days. They regularly feel tired or dizzy, or generally just have lower energy levels, especially during their period. Okay, now we have some recipes. These are recipes for those with excess syndromes. So in the first recipe, we have ginger slices, red dates, and brown sugar. This is quite common. You might see them in pre-packed in sachets nowadays. So these ingredients are warming in nature, and they help to increase blood circulation, hence easing pain. This recipe only requires 15 to 20 minutes of boiling, so it's pretty easy to prepare. First, remove the seeds from the dates, then simmer the ginger and the dates for 15 to 20 minutes, and add brown sugar last. So the second recipe uses hawthorn berries, cassia twigs, 桂枝, and brown sugar. So both of these herbs help to increase blood flow, and in addition, cassia twigs can warm the meridians and help to dispel cold. Do note that these herbs require a slightly longer cooking time of half an hour. So 40 minutes. So these herbal teas should be consumed every day for 5 to 7 days consecutively before the period begins. So stop taking them when the period starts. This is because the herbs used help to increase blood circulation, which can also cause periods to be heavier, and we don't want that. So now for the deficiency syndromes. In the first recipe, it's very similar. We have ginger slices, red dates, brown sugar, and here we add in dried longans. So red dates and dried longans here can help to nourish the blood. And we still want the ginger slices for its warming and pain relieving effects. So the method for cooking is similar to the first tea recipe. You can cut up the longans and dates so that the flavor can be better released, so that it can be more effective. And then the other recipe is a soup recipe. We will be using astragalus, huang qi, or tang shen. Just pick one of them. This helps to nourish qi. Tang gui, red dates, and wolfberries help to nourish blood. So simmer these herbs with meat of your choice, either chicken or pork, for 1 to 2 hours. So again, these herbs that can nourish blood can also affect the menstrual flow. So for the tea, take it every day for 5 to 7 days before the period begins. And as for the soup, the herbs used are stronger in nourishing, so you don't need to take it every day. Just take it once a week between periods. So like your child can start taking it once her period ends, then continue taking for the next 3 weeks if she has this regular 28-day cycle, and then stop and wait for the period to begin. So these herbs are nourishing and can be heaty to some. If you find your child developing a sore throat or constipation, you can reduce the amount of herbs, especially dried longans and tang gui. They are the heatier ones, or decrease the frequency of taking these recipes. So here are some acupoints which can help to relieve menstrual cramps as well. So first one would be He Gu. So this is in between your thumb and index finger. So your thumb and, let me see this, a thumb and index finger. So find your second palm bone and locate the midpoint, but don't press on the bone. But you press on the fleshy area right beside the bone. So you can either do it like that, like what is shown in the picture, or you can do it like that. So personally, I think it's easier to get the spot like that. Don't know whether you can see. So this point is rather sensitive, so it should feel rather sore where you're at the correct point. So Herbal helps to regulate and nourish qi. It can also be used for headaches and neck aches. So next we have Xue Hai. So this is right above your knee. Okay, so we have our kneecap over here. Hold on, let me see if I can on my laser pointer. Okay, so we have our kneecap over here. So find the inner top corner of the kneecap, and the acupoint is actually 45 degrees diagonally upwards. So it's where your quadriceps are. So place 3 fingers a bit slanted like that, and here is the point. So this point should feel pretty sore as well. You can try finding it on your own leg. So rather than focusing on getting the exact spot by measurement, you can try, it is often more effective in finding a spot that feels sore. And also when finding your child's acupoint, it should be the width of her 3 fingers and not yours. So the next one, it will be San Yin Jiao. This is on the inner part of the lower leg. So find the tip of your inner ankle, which is this one. There should be a bone protruding. Find the highest point. Then you place 4 fingers, like in this picture. And again, it should be your child's fingers. You can estimate the width. The point is located behind the bone. So there will be this bone over here. And then the point is located behind the bone. So again, this point should also feel quite sore. This point helps to nourish the kidneys, and it can help with a number of problems other than menstrual cramps. So such as irregular periods, menopause issues, insomnia, and anxiety. Last acupoint we have is Tai Chong. This is between the first and second feet bones. So you can slide your finger up from in between the big and second toe like that until you reach a point where you hit the bones, and then you move back a little bit. So it is in this depression. You should be pressing on the space between the bones and not on the bones. This point is not so sensitive. It does not necessarily feel very sore. So this point, Tai Chong and Xue Hai above, helps with blood circulation. So the way to do it is to massage each acupoint for 5 minutes every day, starting from 5 to 7 days before the period. Same thing with the herbal recipes. Stop the massage when the period starts. It may also increase menstrual flow. So now let's move on to acne. So acne is an inflammatory skin condition caused by the skin pores or follicles being plugged by oil and dead skin cells. And these plugs become infected by bacteria living on the skin and result in red and swollen bumps. It mainly affects skin with more oil glands, and that includes the face, upper part of the chest, and back. So acne can present as many forms. Whiteheads and blackheads are the milder forms which haven't been infected. And when they become infected, white blood cells rush to the area to treat the infection. And this causes irritation to the surrounding area, resulting in red or pink raised bumps. And this is what we see in papules and pustules. So pustules are the ones with pus within. Those are the ones that we usually like to pop, but really shouldn't, because it can cause more scarring. And not to mention, we can introduce more bacteria to the open wound. Cysts and nodules form when the inflammation goes deep into the skin. So these are usually painful and most likely to scar. So in TCM, acne generally has to do with heat and dampness. So heat presents as inflammation and hormones being overactive. And dampness results in fluids being clogged, like the swelling and pus we see in pimples. So another property of dampness is that it's difficult to get rid of. So diseases that involve dampness like eczema, 湿疹, rheumatism, 风湿, and this acne often becomes a chronic problem. So here are some possible diagnoses for acne. usually classify the milder form of acne as lung heat. So they usually appear as blackheads, whiteheads, and papules, with redness being its main feature, representing heat in the body. So they usually appear on the cheeks and also on the nose. They can be accompanied by heaty symptoms, like always looking very flushed, feeling thirsty easily, and heavy constipation. Next, we have damp heat. People who fall under this category usually have visibly oily skin and sometimes also on the scalp. Because there is dampness involved, the swelling and pus can be more prominent. So as a result, on top of blackheads, whiteheads, and papules, we can see pus-filled pustules and also a little bit of cysts. So the acne can sometimes spread to the chest and back as well. And this group of people usually have indigestion issues. So they feel bloated easily, burp and pass gas more frequently, and they usually pass, the gas that they pass are usually smellier. So they might also have bad breath and sticky stools. For those with phlegm and blood stagnation, we usually see more severe acne involving cysts, nodules, and scarring that take longer to heal. So this usually occurs in the chronic cases of acne. And for those with blood heat, the acne is usually brought about by stress, inadequate sleep, or related to the menstrual cycle. So they can appear in the form of blackheads and whiteheads, papules and pustules, and they usually appear on the forehead or between the eyebrows. So females with this form of acne might also have irregular periods. So here are some recipes for acne. The first one is a tea recipe. We have honeysuckle flower, 金银花, wild chrysanthemum, 野菊花, and dandelion, 蒲公英. So this 野菊花 is different from the chrysanthemum we commonly see. So this one is 野菊花. You can see the flower, the shape of the flower is not so prominent like the ones that we usually see. So this one actually has better heat clearing properties. It has 清热解毒的作用. So you can either use all of them or you pick 2 of them to make tea. So this one is 金银花, this is 野菊花, and this is 蒲公英. So you don't need to boil them for a very long time. Just steep in boiling water for 5 to 10 minutes will do. So these ingredients mainly help to clear heat. And the next recipe will be using 25 grams of green bean, 25 grams of barley, and 15 grams of kelp. So together they help to clear heat and dampness. So this requires a longer cooking time of 45 minutes to 1 hour, or until the green beans split open and the barley softens. So these recipes can be consumed every day consecutively for 1 to 2 weeks. If the acne condition improves, then the frequency of taking these recipes can be reduced. So TCM emphasizes on the holistic approach to treating diseases. So on top of herbal recipes, there are some lifestyle modifications that has to be made as well. So adopt a good skincare routine. This reduces the buildup of sebum and dead cells in the pores. Reduce intake of sweet, spicy, and fried food. So these items can take a toll on the digestive system and generate internal heat and dampness. Eat more fruits and vegetables to promote regular bowel movement. So irregular bowel movements can also contribute to the buildup of internal heat. And the last one is something that many teens have trouble with. Try to have them sleep early, preferably before 11, because late nights can also lead to internal heat. So the last topic we have will be tips for growing tall. Really, this might sound very repetitive, but the key to good health, or in this case, growth and development, never falls out of these 3 aspects. Having a balanced diet, sufficient sleep. Teenagers need 8 to 10 hours, and having enough exercise. So 1 hour of exercise a day for school children. So growth hormone is actually released during sleep. So not having enough sleep would suppress this release. And exercise is important to help children build stronger bones as well. So from the TCM's perspective, when we talk about improving body constitutions, 调理身体, we focus on nourishing blood for girls, for women, and nourishing kidneys for boys, for men. So one thing to take note is that these nourishing herbs are only suited for children in later stages of puberty. So for girls, it would be after the first period arrives, and for boys, would be after their voice starts to deepen. So when these herbs are given too early, there is this risk of inducing puberty, which will end up stunting growth instead. So it'd be actually advisable to bring your child to a physician for him or her to assess what your child requires so that the herbs given can be more targeted at your child's constitution. So some common herbs that we use for nourishing blood would include these: 丹参、当归、熟地、田七 or 三七、桂圆 or 龙眼肉, and 红枣. Common prescription that you might see in herbal shops would be this 八珍汤. So this is extremely beneficial for girls and women in general. It helps to nourish qi and blood. Boys can take it as well. You can buy those pre-packed herbs. Many medicinal stores have them, or you can get these herbs in these quantities below. So 党参、白术、茯苓、甘草 is actually what we call 四君子. So this one helps to strengthen the spleen system and nourish qi. And then the 当归、白芍、川芎、熟地 and 枸杞, this one mainly help to nourish blood. So yeah, this together it helps to nourish qi and blood. So first you can rinse the herbs and then blanch the meat, and then you put them together in a pot and simmer for 1 to 2 hours. So similar to the earlier recipes, this should not be taken during periods. So you can again brew this for your child after her period and take it once every week until the period comes. So some herbs used here can be heaty. So when taking this soup, do avoid heaty food items like fried and spicy food, and drink plenty of water too. And so the herbs that can be reduced when you find that it's too heaty would be 熟地 and 当归. And now these are the herbs that can help to nourish the kidneys, so more for the boys. 杜仲、续断、女贞子、菟丝子、八戟天 and 肉苁蓉. So these herbs are not so commonly used in food recipes. So I think it's better to get a physician to advise you better whether your child suits, this herb suits your child. So I put together a herbal recipe that you can try out. So basically, it's going to be very similar to the previous 八珍汤 because the basis is still to nourish qi and blood. So as you can see, we still have the 党参、白术、甘草. This one is to nourish qi. And for nourishing blood, we have 当归、熟地、枸杞. It's the same. And just that for now, we will add in a few herbs that can help to nourish the kidneys, like 山药, which is a Chinese yam, or 淮山, lotus seeds, 莲子, 续断, and 杜仲. So this recipe can be taken once a week, and also avoid heaty food and drink plenty of water. So these recipes are more for general conditioning, and actually the whole family can take it as well. Here are some food items that can be taken to help with nourishing the kidneys. So black beans, wolfberries, this can help to improve eyesight as well. Black sesame, walnuts are also said to improve memory and concentration, and mulberries. So according to the 5 elements theory, kidney is assigned the color black. So as you can see here, many food items that nourish kidneys are actually black. Okay, also we have this 四神汤. So the function of this is to strengthen the spleen, also the digestive system. So the spleen is in charge of transforming the food that we eat into nutrients that can be utilized by the body to produce qi and blood, the 2 essential substances that we need to function, to do basically everything. And in teenagers, they are also needed to promote growth and development. So it is all the more important for their spleen systems to be functioning at their optimum. And in Singapore, many of us like to take cold drinks, which is actually very damaging to the spleen. So we say that our body is actually warm, and if you take cold drinks, the body still needs to expand qi to warm up the cold food that you take. So this one, it reduces qi in general. This soup is very suited for the general population. It is very safe to consume, as you can see that many of these herbs are actually also food items. So we'll be using Chinese yam, 淮山, lotus seeds, 莲子, porridge, 茯苓, 芡实, or Chinese barley, 薏仁. So you can use around 10 to 20 grams of each herb. And you can add some meat to the recipe to make it more flavorful. So as parents, understand that you want to give your best to your child, but tonics actually need to be given at the right time and in the right amount. So many of you might have heard of people saying that 天气, ginseng, or cordyceps can help to strengthen immunity or help your child grow taller. But this depends on whether your child needs them and how their body constitution is. So as a general rule, these herbs should not be given for children who hasn't entered puberty, or actually only used in small amounts. As I have mentioned before, we will start to nourish at the later stages of puberty. So when the first menstruation arrives or when voices start to deepen for boys. There are cases where taking large quantities of these herbs at a young age resulted in early puberty. Another herb that you need to watch out for is also tang gui. So do consult a physician to find out more before brewing these herbs for them. But of course, if you are let's say cooking ginseng, just herbal chicken, and the whole family is taking them, that quantity is usually not large enough to induce puberty. Okay, now here are some acupoints that you can massage. You can do massage for your child for general conditioning. So two of them we have already gone through, Herbal and Sanning-jiao. A new acupoint that I'm going to introduce is Zhu San Li. So it's located 4 finger widths below the kneecap and 1 finger width from the shin bone. So from this diagram, you can see that under the kneecap, there should be 2 indentations, one on the inner side and one on the outer side. So you take the outer indentation, the outer depression, so like over here, this one you can see the depression, and take 4 fingers down. So now you shouldn't be feeling on the bone. The point should be the fleshy area beside the shin bone. So this one is your shin bone. So like 1 finger width away. So you move your fingers slightly outwards if you are feeling on the bone. And if you are in the right place, when you tilt your foot up and down like that, right, a muscle should pop out. You should feel the muscle tensing. So the correct point, if you found the correct point, you should feel rather sore as well. So this point can help to strengthen qi, and especially the spleen and stomach qi, improving the overall digestive system. The last point would be yongquan. This is at the bottom of the feet. If you scrunch up your toes, the depression should be quite prominent. Yeah, so this one should bulge out. So the depression, yeah, it should be quite prominent. You should be able to see it. So this is used to nourish kidney qi. If you're unsure of any acupoints that I have mentioned before, I can go through it again. Just post that in the chat box. Okay, so now we have come to the end of the webinar session. Feel free to type in your comments, or let me know if you need me to turn back to any slide that you are interested in.
All right. Wow. Thanks for the very insightful sharing earlier. So right now for Q&A session, we have a lot of questions. So this is the first question by Wan Yi. Okay, she's asking, is there such a thing as growing pain, and how could we relieve the pain?
Actually there's such thing as there are growing pains is when the so like when the bones expand too fast, and then that is what is causing the pain. There actually isn't any specific thing that can be done about it other than just resting. Yeah, I would say. I mean, from TCM's perspective, there isn't anything that we can help with that now.
Okay, and then we have a second question by Christine. She's asking, is it normal to have like menstruation twice in a month when girls just started to have their menstruation?
So like I have mentioned, when they just started, the cycle can be a little messier. So I would advise to observe and see how it goes in the future, and see like the next few cycles, is it still like that, or there's some improvement. And also for getting menstruation twice a month, we would also need to look at whether it's ovulation bleeding or really the menses coming. Yeah, that one would be better assessed by a physician. We need to ask you more questions.
Okay, so next question from Shirley. For boys, what are the more commonly seen signs of puberty? Is it pimples or hair growing?
Hair growing is one of them, but pimples is not they don't necessarily have pimples. Yeah, it's not for not everyone has acne issues. Usually voice deepening, those are the more outward signs that you can see lah, like facial hair, yeah, or like body odor, this kind of symptoms. Actually, the first thing that they that usually happens to them is the growth of genitals, but yeah, that one you can't really tell unless you can't really tell.
Okay, next question from Karen. Karen is asking, what's the difference between cassia and cinnamon?
This cinnamon is the we treat it as two different herbs in TCM. So for cassia twigs, it's actually the same plant, but cassia twigs is the twigs, and then for cinnamon, which is 桂皮, it is the skin of the bark. Yeah, so there is a slight difference. So cinnamon is actually more warming in nature. We use it to nourish the kidneys, and also for those who have a cold body type. Slightly different.
Okay. Next question from Sharon. She's asking how to reduce heatiness for boys.
Reduce heatiness. Usually for the common herbs that we use would be chrysanthemum, 虾枯草, this kind of things. Yeah, but it still depends lah. It depends on what kind of heatiness that we are talking about. But for common herbs that we use, yeah, 虾枯草, chrysanthemum, even the tea that I mentioned just now, the 金银花蒲公英 and 金银花蒲公英 and 野菊花, that one also helps to reduce heat. But that one is more cooling, so not to take it too often if your child is not really really heaty.
Okay. Next question by Wan Yi. I think we've covered this in our slides earlier. She's asking, can girls drink Bachan after they finish their period, as well as how frequent can they drink it?
So yeah, we talked about it just now. So 八珍汤, you can take it after the period. So you avoid taking during the period. So how you take it is, you take it once a week. So you can start when the period ends, and then you take it once a week. So it'll be like 3 times if you're talking about the 28-day cycle. So you take 3 times, and then you wait for the next period to come. So you can actually also take up to 1 to 2 times a week. But it really depends on your constitution. And we say that these herbs are, these nourishing herbs, right? They are heaty in nature. So they are actually not heaty, they are warming in nature. So we have to be careful not to take spicy fried food, and really drink plenty of water. If not, your body will be more prone to getting heaty.
Okay, and then what about boys? What can they take to help in growth?
Yeah, I mentioned before just now, so let me go back to the slide. So for boys, right, usually we will add in things that help to nourish kidneys. So for boys, the key is to help to 补肾气, so nourish kidney qi. Yeah, so some of these herbs that we use would be the ones that I have shown here. But the common one would be 杜仲 and 续断 and also like the Chinese yam, 山药, and also these lotus seeds. Yeah, you can try out this recipe. This one helps to nourish kidney qi.
Okay, so this leads us to our next question, which is by Sarah. She's asking whether this nourishing kidneys recipe is it can be taken by anyone.
Yeah, actually it's quite a general recipe that you can try it. It helps to balance the constitution, but of course, so for TCM it really depends on the constitution. I cannot say that it is suitable for everyone, but for the general healthy population, you can take it so as like just a normal 就调理身体的一个汤。
I think
So
for
even for
those,
八针 also actually.
yeah, I think just to add, for those of you who are unsure of your child's body constitution, you can always consult a TCM physician. They will be able to help you have a diagnosis and see what kind of body constitution your child belongs to. Yeah. And then we have the next question by Katie. Yeah, she's asking what kind of barley, I think is mentioned in our recipes.
Oh, usually we use the Chinese barley, so 中国薏米. I think you can see it from my picture over here. So this one over here, yeah, it's the one that looks a little fatter. So we say that this one is actually better for clearing dampness. The other one that you see, the what we call 荷兰薏米, the one that tastes nicer, is actually better for clearing heat. But for recipes, we usually use this one because we use it to clear dampness and strengthen the spleen.
Okay, now we have the next question by Emily. She's asking, can 13-year-olds drink 四神汤?
四神汤 is actually a very so it's actually suited for the general population also. 四神汤, it can even be given to like very young kids, so like 1-year-old, 2-year-old, because actually kids at that age, right, kids generally they have poorer digestive system, so you see that they get stomach issues very easily, like diarrhea, stomach aches, all those. So this is actually very good to help to strengthen the spleen system lah.
Okay, next question by Shirley. Will taking ginger help to warm up the body if the child drinks cold drinks regularly?
Yeah, it would help to counter the I mean, if your child has a cold body type, then ginger has its warming effects lah. But it can't really be seen as like if I drink cold drinks, then I drink, then that counter it lah. Yeah, it can't really be seen as that. Yeah.
Okay, I think the best way is to avoid cold drinks, right?
Yeah, that would be best.
Okay, so next question from Sarah. Sarah's kid is already taking the 田七 pill from Yuan Sang. Is that okay?
Oh, it depends on what age or like what stage of puberty that he or she is in. Actually, we also give 田七 to children, but the key thing is the amount. So it's not advised to give them in large amounts. But if you follow the amount stated, then it's fine.
Okay, and then we have one from Katie as well. She's asking if tang gui is suitable, for kids who are from what age onwards?
Usually, as I have mentioned, it is usually just a general rule, right? It is better for kids who have passed like the later stages of puberty. So for girls would be when they get their menstruation, after they get their menstruation, and for boys would be when their voices start to deepen. But tangui is usually used for girls more often now.
Okay, we have also one from Serene. One of her daughters started menses when she was close to 11 years old. She's now 13, but her menstrual cycle isn't very regular. Should she be concerned?
Yeah, for if it's 2 years already and it's still not very regular, then I would advise to bring it up to a doctor so that we can better assess it and see whether it's something that needs to be treated.
Okay, next question we have. Is it common for a 7.5-year-old girl to start feeling sore on the nipples?
7.5 years, it might be the beginning of puberty. I would say that it's a little bit early also.
Because
If
usually it
it's
starts at 8 years old
yeah
onwards,
after
right?
8, so also you can bring it up to a doctor so that they also can better assess it and see what can be done.
Okay, next one. How much 田七 can a boy consume? Is it once a week?
田七 if you are buying pills, then you can follow the dosage instructions that are given. But if you are cooking soup, then I say once a week will be fine. And also, but you must take note after the puberty has started lah. Yeah.
Okay, and then next one from Serene. What about precocious puberty, or what we call early puberty?
Mm-hmm.
Any ways to delay the symptoms further?
Usually we see it for TCM's perspective, um, we treat the condition as a heaty condition, so we will try and use herbs to delay it, try and use herbs to clear the heat. Yeah.
Okay,
For Western side, they have hormone therapy that can help with it. But if you bring your child too late, like I said, if the menses has started, then typically they can't do anything about it. Mm.
all right. Next one, we have one from Jenny. For menstrual cramps, can a girl have both deficiency and excess?
You're talking about maybe there are some symptoms that overlap, right? Yes,
Hmm.
because we have to take into account the tongue and pulse also before we can really access. Yeah, if not, it's actually not possible to, as in it can be possible to have the deficiency and excess in a way that we can say that they have blood deficiency, but they have blood stagnation properties as well. Then those cases are a little bit more complicated in terms of using herbs. Yeah, we will need to mix and match a little bit.
Okay, next one, we have one from Rebecca. If a 7-year-old kid is having growing pain, can she take TNT?
Growing pain, 7-year-old kid, I would say it might be a little bit too early. It's better to get it prescribed instead of like just taking it on your own. Mm.
Okay, next one from Sarah. She's asking if the child does not eat nuts or most of the listed items to help growing tall, what other ways can we and can they do to help them?
Um, I would say to exercise. Yeah, so exercise is actually quite important also, and sleep, like having adequate sleep and exercise. Yeah, make sure they just go out and spend 1 hour, run and jump. Like it doesn't really matter what exercise they do, but just the key thing is just to exercise. Mm.
Okay, Shirley is also asking how often to drink the nourishing kidney soup for boys.
So this kind of soup recipes you can take it once a week. Mm.
Okay, next one from Vivi. Vivi has heard that young children begin their puberty at an earlier age nowadays. Is it possible to delay it?
Mm. The We see that we see more and more um, early puberty cases, and a, a theory is that it has to do with nutrition. So because people are more, we get more food, and yeah, we get more nutritious. People are like they reach like sufficient nutrition levels very early. So that's why they are having puberty earlier. And another risk factor would be obesity. So childhood obesity is actually something that should take note of also, because like subcutaneous fats, right, it can also contribute to hormone production, and this is um, it's not directly linked yet, but it's correlated. So children with higher BMI, higher weight, they are more likely, they are at a higher risk of entering um, early puberty. So what I would say to reduce the risk would be to make sure that they have a healthy weight and not take excessive meat products also, like proteins. So it still comes back to like having a balanced diet, like vegetables, meat. Yeah.
Okay, next one we have one from Felicia. She's asking, can a child with G6PD deficiency take the recipes that were shared earlier?
G6PD, G6PD, 金银花, you can't take 金银花. Yeah, the rest should be okay. Not that I know of.
Okay, but I
Mm.
think to be safe, if Felicia, if you're unsure, you should consult a medical professional just to have it checked first. Yeah. Okay, Sarah is asking, because her daughter is 12, menses has not come yet. Yeah, so what should she do?
It depends on whether she has any like development, like any physical developments, like secondary sexual characteristics, so like breast parts. I would say 12 is still not an age to, I say it's not it's not very delayed yet, so it's not something to worry as of now lah. But if
Okay.
you're unsure, of course, bring it up to a doctor so that they can assess your child and give you better recommendations and advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-mm.
Okay, next one from Jenny. She's asking, can a child take 泡参 to improve alertness and reduce heat?
Mm-hmm. 泡参, so it also under the falls under all the ginseng categories. Um, how old did you mention? Was it
No.
mentioned? Maybe for young. Generally, ginseng we still recommend it for older kids lah. Not young kids.
Okay. Okay. Just now the Sarah's question, because her daughter is 12, menses is not come yet. But the thing is, her daughter is already taking the TNT pill. Is it advisable or should she like stop now?
TNT pill, if it's I say actually if it's in the correct amount, it's actually okay. Like sometimes we also prescribe TNT and Dangshen, this kind of herbs to children. But yeah, it depends on their constitution. So I would say for specific cases, if you are giving them before their puberty, or like before like the later stages of puberty, then you check with a physician. That would be better. Mm.
Okay. Another question. How about peanut roots? Does it help to grow taller?
There's a very common recipe out there. Um, I'm not too sure about it, but I have read out about it. So peanut roots actually, the main thing, it helps to strengthen the skin system lah. So what they are trying to do would be to nourish qi as well. Mm.
Okay. Next question from Karen. Karen's nephew will be 14 years old next year, but his voice is still not breaking. So, should the nephew be taken to a TCM physician?
Mm, 14 years old, as in 14 years old. Every child actually has their own like pace of growing. Uh, so if you want, but you have to see whether he has like other changes yet. So usually if a kid still delayed puberty, right? I think it's after 16, 17. Yeah, so if you have seen like no signs of puberty, then that is something that should be that is worrying lah. Mm.
Okay. Next one, Serene is asking, because she can't recall if there are slides just now about removing heat. If there was, can we, flash it back, please?
Removing heat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There isn't a specific slide about removing heat. This one this is the this is the only recipes that, because for acne it's usually to do with heat and dampness. So for acne recipes, this one helps to clear heat.
Okay. Another one, is there any TCM herbs that is suitable for 8-year-olds to control their weight? Because the 8-year-old is overweight. 8-year-old girl is overweight.
That one would really depend on the constitution. Generally, we say that for people who are overweight, they have dampness in their body lah. So a lot of times the treatment protocol would be to remove dampness. Yeah, but for weight management, it's better to see a physician to determine the constitution so that they can be better. The advice can be better targeted at your child. Mm.
Okay, next one from Pei Chu. Pei Chu's boy's voice has already changed at 11 years old, and he is experiencing acne problem. Is it considered the start of puberty, and is this considered too early?
I don't. It's not really early lah, I would say. So acne can actually happen at any time. Acne is not really a a hallmark of like puberty. So it's not a sign that puberty has arrived or not. So acne is like a skin condition that is usually appears after puberty because the hormones are more active. So like more oil is produced. Yeah.
Okay, next one from Jenny. She's asking, this acne herbal remedies, is the kelp shown in this recipe the same ones that were used in, usually we see
Japanese
those
food.
Japanese food, like miso soup.
Yeah, actually it's the
Is it
same.
the same?
It's the same ones. Yeah.
Okay. Next one from Karen. Okay, his nephew hasn't grown much taller since 10, 12 years old. So yeah, I think this is a response to an earlier question. So they will wait it out before bringing him to see a TCM physician. Yeah. Okay, last one. Last two from Jenny. She's asking whether Potion is it suitable for 10-year-olds?
That one, I would advise for later ages lah. Really depends on the kid's constitution. Yeah. So for generally, if they have passed their puberty, then it's of course safe. But anything before, it's better to assess lah.
Okay,
and anything start with small quantities lah, not large quantities.
Yeah, I think too much of anything is always not good for health. Okay, one more from Vivi. Vivi, she's asking whether there's any recipes for children for them to have better sleep at night because her child doesn't sleep well and wakes up quite often in the middle of the night. The child is 5 years old now.
Okay. Recipes. There are prescriptions out there. It's better to get it prescribed. Yeah. So there isn't anything that I can give you offhand like that because it depends on the kids' constitution. Usually for kids that usually wake up at night or like they wake up crying, we say that they have 虚火, so we need to 滋阴清热. Yeah, so that's a little bit more complicated to just solve it with a food recipe. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's better to have your child checked out by a TCM professional. Okay. I think that is the last question. Just to clarify for the promotion that I mentioned earlier, there's no promo code required. You just need to go to our TCM clinic at Tiong Bahru as well as Novena and just mention, you've attended this puberty webinar and our clinic assistants will know what to do. Yep. Okay. Wow. Okay. I think we have. Do we have time for one last question? I think we have. Okay. From Sarah. Teenagers sleep late. So does it mean, if they have the needed hours of sleep, they are fine, or meaning sleep late and wake up late?
Oh, for TCM's theory, right, we say that it's better to sleep before 11. So sleeping late can actually also generate internal heat. So it needs to build up internal heat. And symptoms that we can see are like thirst, like getting thirsty very easily, oral ulcers, so getting ulcers very easily, swollen gums, or like sore eyes, constipation. These are some symptoms of heatiness.
Okay, all right. So that is all we have tonight. Very big thank you to everyone who joined us here tonight, and I wish everyone a very good night. And thank you once again to Physician Yen. Thank you. All right, and we will see you guys in our next webinar. Our next webinar will be happening on the 29th of December. That is, the topic will be about stress. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.